Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hotspur Huddle. We are back, ladies and gents, on this fine Wednesday evening. I am back with my two lovely favourite people, and that is first of all Wes. Wes, welcome back to the Hotspur Huddle. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you, Hollie. Obviously, international break is kind of done, dusted. We're going to put that to the side now, and I think we've got a really, really good show for the lovely people tonight. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
It's definitely a good one. And I'm also joined by the amazing Nelson. Nelson, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Hollie. Good to be back, and I'm actually really excited for this episode. So let's get it cracking.
Let's do it. But yeah, it should be really good. Like I said, it's been a bit of a, I don't know about you guys, but international break for me, I'm not about it, to be honest. Even if Spurs or whoever our teams are playing a bit dumb, I still don't like it, to be honest. I get a bit bored. But we're here tonight to obviously do something a little bit different. Before we crack on, I'm going to let Wes do his thing. So obviously this show is sponsored by Kofa. So Wes, do your thing for me, for my friend.
Yeah, so Kofa or Kickoff Football Academy Milton Keynes run different football sessions for young boys and girls in the Milton Keynes area, Delhi Alley country. For those that don't know where it is, just think of Delhi. He's probably the most famous thing to come out of the area, to be honest. So yeah, we've got lots and lots of different sessions. So if you're in and around Milton Keynes, get in touch to see how we can improve your child's footballing ability along their journey.
Lovely, jovely. So make sure you go check that out. But we're going to crack on with tonight's show. And obviously tonight we are doing our underrated 11 of the Premier League at this current state. Now, we have done our teams individually, but I think we're going to go through position by position. So Wes, let's start with you first. There's going to be a few spoilers because obviously people will see the full lineup, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to let you say why you've chosen your goalie.
Yeah, so for me, I've gone with Jose Sarr from Wolves. I think he's a really, really underrated goalkeeper in terms of his basic sort of goalkeeping fundamentals, in terms of his shot stopping. I think he's quite good. Wolves are a team that do tend to give other opponents quite a lot of chances, and I think his probably save percentage for me is arguably up there. I mean, I haven't checked. Sorry about that. But I would argue that his sort of save percentage is quite high. And I think he also comes up with saves in key moments and in big moments for Wolves. Also fairly decent with the ball at his feet in terms of, looking at a modern day goalkeeper and the requirements that they need. So obviously ball playing ability is definitely up there. So yeah, Jose Sarr from Wolverhampton Wanderers gets my pick for underrated goalkeeper.
Very, very nice. And Nelson, who have you gone for, my friend?
As you can see, I've gone to West London and picked Bernd Leno. I think we all know Bernd Leno is someone that's obviously been in the league before with Arsenal, but he also had his kind of critics. And obviously, in terms of when Aaron Ramsdale came to replace him, it was one of the underlying features was that he wasn't able to kind of play out from the back and distribute. But I think for him to leave a top club like Arsenal, but still wanting to potentially, I think he probably had a personal kind of mission to prove himself in the league. So I think for him to make the trip, obviously across London to the West and join Fulham and actually be a stable figure in that side, I have to give him full credit. And I think he's one of the main reasons why Fulham have been able to be where they are this season. I think he's an excellent shot stopper of the ball. Obviously, I know him previously from being at the club, but obviously one of the criticisms was obviously penalty saves and whatnot, but I think he's one of the best shot stoppers in the league. And I think his distribution has actually improved being there. So I think the back line at Fulham, especially the defenders who are there, I think normally as a defender, you need to have a sense of security when you know who's behind you in goal. And I think he's provided that at Fulham. So he's my pick for goalkeeper in my last squad today.
I was saying it's a bit soon, Nelson, obviously, after the defeat for Spurs last week. But it's fine. I'll forgive you. It's all right. And for me, no shock, I've gone for a Spurs player, and that is obviously Vicario. Because although he's very new to the league, and obviously I am a little bit swayed at the fact that he's a Spurs player, but I think he's lightened up the Premier League just in the manner of the saves he's done, the way he's gelled into the Premier League. As we all know, the Premier League's totally different to most leagues in the world. So for me, it has to be big man Vicario. But I'm going to go back to Wes with his back line. So go for it, my friend.
Yeah, so at the back, starting with right back, I've gone with a player who I genuinely think is going to have an unbelievably bright future. And I think is criminally underrated, and that is Rico Lewis at Man City. This kid is a joke. The fact that Pep throws him into this kind of Man City super team, if you like, at 17 years of age, and then says, right, you not only are you going to be my right back, but I'm going to need you to also play in midfield. And the way he takes the ball in any types of situations is ridiculous. And yeah, I know it's different. I know he hasn't played much this season, but I think that's probably down to the form of Kyle Walker, who for me, probably the best right back in the world, and up there in terms of top 3 right backs that we've seen in the Premier League. But yeah, for me, Rico Lewis criminally underrated. So that's why he's in there. Centre back wise, I've gone with Murillo at Forest, Brazilian centre back, 23 years of age. Nobody really knew about him before he went to Forest. He's then gone to Forest. I think everybody got to know about him basically when they played Palace, and he went on that little mazy run and nearly scored that worldy goal. But I think with Murillo, his actual defending is a real key part of his game and a top part of his game. And he can defend really, really well. And he's not the biggest centre back either, but I don't see many centre forwards getting the better of him in the air. So again, I think sort of an underrated centre back. And I think if Forest do go down, I can see him getting a really good move off the back of it. Obviously, Forest won't want to sell him on the cheap, but I think he's got credit in the bank for me. Left-footed as well, which doesn't quite help me because of who he's playing alongside, because he's also left-footed. But I think nowadays left-footed centre halves are so rare. Put it this way, Hollie, like if Murillo turned up at Tottenham, I'm not gonna be going, oh my god, why have we signed him? I think he's a good defender, and I think international status and international caps are certainly en route. Having said that, the guy next to him has got that international experience. He's got a little bit more Premier League experience, and that for me is Nathan Ake. I think he's been really, really key, and I think he's stepped up in this last couple of or sort of year and a half massively for City. He's done a really good job. Not only is that in that left centre back position, but also sort of playing left back at times. We obviously know the way City set up with the in possession with the 3 at the back. But I think Ake has really come into his own, and he was a player that I think when City signed him, you're like, is he really at that level, that proper like top elite level? And I think he's definitely gone and shown that he's able and capable to play at that real top level. Really good on the ball. Obviously, it's why Pep's bought him in the first place. But yeah, I think again a defender that doesn't necessarily get the plaudits that he should. So yeah, he's in alongside Murillo, and then left back I've gone with Anthony Robinson from Fulham. Sorry, Hollie, I know you said it was a bit soon with the Fulham defeat. But I think Anthony Robinson, if you're looking at the credentials for a modern day fullback, I think he has it all. He can get up and down the pitch, defensively fairly strong, loves a tackle, would absolutely he would 2-foot his grand basically if it meant like stopping a goal. He's a little bit of a throwback in that sense, but I think he's got good quality, can whip a really good ball in, I think, as we saw in that Fulham game. And yeah, I think I'm surprised that nobody's really higher up the league hasn't really gone in for him. So yeah, I think he's a little bit underrated. I know there was talks potentially of Liverpool sniffing. I think it was before they got Tsimikas. They were looking at Anthony Robertson. So yeah, like I say, I'm still surprised that he hasn't had that move. But I think, like I say, as a modern day sort of fullback, I think he possesses a lot of good attributes. So that's my back 4. I hope I haven't missed anybody out. I'm sure people will probably get in the comments at some point and tell me. But that's who I've gone for in my back 4.
I like it, and as we all know, with my awful football knowledge, there's some names in there that I haven't really heard of. So it was interesting to get your take. But Nelson, is there anybody in your side that's the same as Wes, or have you gone for something totally different?
I've gone for a completely different backline. I know me and Wes have had that conversation. He did actually call me out on one of the names, which I'll come to a bit later on in my backline. But I'm going to start on the left. I'm going to go left back and start with Aït-Nouri. I think Aït-Nouri has been. I hope I've pronounced his name right, but I think he's been a really good for Wolves this season. And I think, as Wes mentioned in one of our episodes a few weeks ago, Gary O'Neill, I think, is in contention to be one of the to be manager of the season. I think he's done an absolute fantastic job with Wolves so far, considering where they were last season. And Aït-Nouri, compared to Anthony Robertson, who I actually think is a really good selection that Wes has made for his squad, a bit different type of player to Aït-Nouri, Aït-Nouri, and I think Aït-Nouri is more offensive in terms of defensive than Robertson is, and I think he is someone that again he could develop into that modern day left back. I still think he needs to add some stuff to his game, but in terms of what he provides for that Wolves side, I think he's very important to how Wolves play. And I think in the last few weeks, you could actually see him playing a more advanced role. And I think that's obviously resulted in him getting some really good, important assists and goals for Wolves. And I really like him as a player, very dynamic. One of the few fullbacks that when he actually has the ball can take on a few players. And you don't really get that nowadays. I think that's that flair he brings to the Wolves side. So I really like Aït-Nouri. So I decided that I wanted to put him in my squad. I think he's underrated. I wouldn't say criminally underrated like some of the players that Wes mentioned in his back line, but I think a lot of people this season will start to take notice of him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he even got a move, not to a bigger club, but I would say, your clubs that sort of in and around the mid to kind of top 6 level. So I put Aït-Nouri in there. Besides Aït-Nouri, I've gone across North London, which obviously pains you guys, but I thought I had to go for Jakub Kiwior. I think Kiwior has been outstanding since he stepped in. I think Arsenal, as fans, they were very happy when they signed Zinchenko. So when Arteta made the purchase of Kiwior, I think a lot of people were a bit baffled as to maybe what he'd offer. And I was kind of thinking this could be another Kim Karlstrom type of signing, like an unknown type of player, but wouldn't actually get any minutes in the squad. But credit to him, played at Spezia and has come in. And I think that obviously the Italian league offers a lot defensively. And I just really think he's a great player. I think he's stepped in when Zinchenko's been really important to the Arsenal side defensively and also actually contributing. I think at times he's played just like West said with Rico Lewis, inverted. But I think a lot of people haven't given him his plaudits. When you look at Arsenal's defence, who are one of the best defences in the league, the 3 names that come up are one, which is on my right back. And then you've got Saliba and Gabriel, the 2 names that are normally brought up. And he hasn't got his plaudits. And I wanted to give him his plaudits. So I've put him in there. Next to him, I've gone across east. As you can see, I've gone from the capital. I've gone from north to east. I know this one might hurt you guys, but I've actually gone for Kurt Zouma.
I don't think it will hurt us, Nelson. It might hurt his cat.
It might hurt his cat. It might hurt his cat, Wes. But I've actually gone for him just because, as West Ham captain, I actually think since obviously that incident that's happened, I think he's actually really focused on his game. And I think most of the good stuff that happens through West Ham, especially in defence, comes from him. And he actually, I believe, is an underrated leader. I think I put him there because I think he's an underrated leader. Of course, we know his heading ability, his prowess in the air. But I think as a leader, I think he's actually done a really good job for West Ham United. So in terms of less about his ball playing ability, because I think we all know how good he can be as a defender, I think I've put him in there because I think he's really underrated as a leader. So I looked at the intangibles rather than what he could do on the pitch. So I've put Kurt Zouma in there. And then to finish off, we got Benny Blanco, the man of the hour. Probably my star player in my squad, Hollie and Wes. Benny Blanco, Ben White, obviously refused to be called up for England. That's another topic. But I think, again, when you talk about Arsenal defence, Saliba, Gabriel, the ones that are brought up, and I think Ben White has been underrated. And again, I put him in there simply because if you look at the pool of right-backs we have in this league, we are actually filled with talent at the right-back position. Obviously, the likes of Reece James to Trent. You can add Aaron Wan-Bissaka in there. But at the end of the day, I think Ben White has actually been really important. I think his inverted role, just like Rico Lewis does at Manchester City, I think has resulted in him actually having his best kind of goals and assist output this season for Arsenal. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans are thankful for him in that 2-1 win against Brentford, because at the end of the day, heading into the weekend against City, I think he's going to be really important defensively against Sound. And if you think about the fact that he started at centre-back and then has shifted to right-back to accommodate for Saliba, since then, I think he's been nothing short of outstanding. So I still think he's underrated compared to the right-backs that we have in this league. Hence why. So, I mean, where do you say what you want to say? But I think some people rate him, but I just don't think he gets enough plaudits. Hence why I put him in there.
Bro, the guy should be on Love Island, innit? Like, let's get it real. Like, no, I personally think Ben White is rated. Like, I wouldn't say he's overrated. Yeah. I mean, you lot do your best to overhype any player anyway. But I'd say he's rated. I wouldn't say he's overrated or underrated. I'd just say, yeah, rated. So that, and then Zuma. I mean, I don't know if you've watched much of West Ham lately, but it looks like the guy can't move. And it looks like he's literally playing off one knee. And there's only one player that's able to do that, of course, is King, is Ledley. So yeah, few contentious ones in your back four there, Nelson. That's all I'm saying.
That's all right. I fancy my back line against yours. That's all right. What about you, Hollie?
We're going to get mine up. We're going to see that I'm, again, very biased. So here we go. Here's mine. I've gone for Pedro Porro because Pedro Porro is a beast at the moment. You noticed with Spurs when we don't have him, it's not as good, if that makes sense. And I think for many other teams, I don't think he's highlighted so much in the Prem, me personally. Also gone for Konza at the back. Obviously, there's a lot of talk with him at Villa. I think that not many people realise, just because sometimes of the way kind of Villa play. I went for Mickey van der Ven just because I love Mickey van der Ven and I wanted there to be a reason to stick Daddy Longlegs in there. Probably is rated in the Premier League, as everybody does talk about him. Me probably a lot more than most. But I think for me, Mickey van der Ven has absolutely transformed our back line with Romero at the back. And again, I've gone very biased with a Dogie at the back as well. And I don't necessarily think I've hit the underrated kind of bracket for that back line. But I thought, you know what? Let's stick him in there because, as we know, Adogie's very young, Mickey's very young. And again, I think I kind of forget, and I think lots of people kind of forget that they're new to the Premier League as well. So that for me was kind of short and sweet. And we're going to go back to Wes with his midfield.
Right, here we go. My midfield. And I've gone for those. This first player is for my FM guys out there. Edson Alvarez at West Ham. Now, if you play Football Manager pre his move to West Ham, you would try and sign this guy. And I think he has just been absolutely brilliant for West Ham. Lot of pressure on his shoulders coming in, big price tag, and had to fill the boots and fill the void left by Declan Rice. And I think this is how good Edson Alvarez has been, is that nobody has spoken about West Ham missing Declan Rice. And I think that has been the biggest compliment I think you can pay him. Don't get me wrong, he loves a card. But I think West Ham kind of knew that. Obviously Mexican international as well. So he has got that little bit of sort of Hispanic steel and roughhousery about him. But yeah, I just think he's been absolutely brilliant. And Mr. Dependable, I think, for West Ham, plays every game that he possibly can for them and gives everything within those games. So for me, Edson Alvarez is there in my number 6 position. Then I've gone for the Sarr man, the Sarr boy, Pat Mata Sarr. Yaya Toure 2.0. What a unbelievable player this young man is. And it's to the point where us Spurs fans, Hollie, as you know, we're now wondering what Conte was doing last season to not give him minutes, because he has been absolutely unbelievable for Tottenham this year. And everybody, myself included, thought when Bentancur's back, Sarr's going to be the one to drop out. But then Sarr has played that well that he's made himself undroppable to Ange. And he's almost kind of made himself indispensable to this Tottenham team, and still being so young as well. Like, I think he's 21. Unbelievable player. And no wonder Paratici's getting done for like fraud or whatever, because that is just daylight robbery how much we bought him for in today's market. So yeah, Pat Matassar is in there, and alongside him is arguably, for me, the most underrated midfielder in the Premier League right now, Pascal Gross. Like when we played Brighton, Brighton had a midfield three of Billy Gilmore, Adam Lallana, and Pascal Gross. Now you look at all of those and you go, they're all technicians, but honestly, they bopped it past us. We could not get near them, and I'm there going, what? Gross is like what, 33, and he's playing like he's 23. He was unbelievable, and that was the moment that I went, yeah, he's a player. Like he is. I never really saw it with Pascal Gross, but I think this year in particular, he's just been on another level. And like I say, in Brighton's midfield, you haven't really got that real kind of enforcer. You haven't really got that Edson Alvarez type of player, but they all know their jobs. They all know their roles on the ball. They are just fantastic. And I think Pascal Gross, when Brighton play well, he plays well, and he's a lot of good things from Brighton. Good things come through him. So yeah, I mean, he's playing for Brighton. No disrespect to Brighton before they were in Europe, and he was getting called up to the German national team, and we all know the talent that they've got at their disposal. And he was getting in there and playing bloody well. So yeah, Pascal Gross for me was the first name down on my team sheet when I had the idea to do the underrated 11, and I think it came off the back of watching him against us earlier on this season. So it was at that point that I thought, yeah, player, and he's a player that you have to watch live, I think, to really appreciate as well. So people that are watching or listening, if I encourage you to watch Brighton and watch Pascal Gross, because you'll see what an unbelievable player he is. So yeah, that is my midfield, Hollie.
I like it. I'm intrigued to see if there's any similarities between our midfield. So Nelson, off you go, my friend. What's your midfield looking like?
I'm going to start off with one player that Wes has mentioned, which we actually have in both our teams. So I'm going to give, again, my props to Pascal Gross. Anybody that has or plays fantasy would know how good Pascal Gross is. And he has been very helpful for me this season. Even last season, alongside another Brighton player, which we haven't mentioned, is Solly March, who I think also it goes under the radar too. But I wanted to put Pascal in there. And I know I saw Darren's comment about making Germany look better, and he absolutely has done and made Germany look way better. Especially, you wouldn't think, like, it's just hit me now that Wes said he's 33. I didn't think that. I thought he was 28, 27. So he does play as though he has a lot of years left in him. And when you look at the fact that obviously Spurs having someone like Basuma, who came from Brighton, we know is an enforcer, but also can be very creative and a technician on the ball. I think he's done very well to just kind of slot in there and be able to kind of, like, one word that Wes used, bop it about. I think that's a really good way of kind of describing how Brighton have done it. So I just wanted to quickly talk about that, about Gross. But my other two midfielders, I put Gross further ahead because I think he's able to kind of create some chances. But I put Endo from Liverpool. I think when Endo was signed for Liverpool, a lot of fans in general kind of commented as to why Klopp made that signing and kind of doubted Klopp's kind of judgment. But I think now a lot of people are kind of, having their mouths or being proven wrong. I think Endo's done really well for Liverpool. Obviously, he's kind of come in and done all the kind of like cup games. But I think now in the last few weeks, he's actually been a mainstay in the side. And I just wanted to give him his props because he is kind of like the enforcer. And he kind of gives me vibes of a Georgie, like Wijnaldum. When Wijnaldum was at Liverpool, not necessarily the offensive abilities, but being able to have the stamina to kind of go around and make himself known and put his foot in, and he's not scared for a tackle. And he does have a strike in him. He has scored some good goals this season. So I wanted to put Endo in there. And then alongside Endo, I think, oh my gosh, I love this player, and I don't know why he hasn't got more. Obviously, against you guys are very happy that he got sent off. Mr. John McGinn is a baller. Please, people understand that this guy is a baller. And he has been one of the reasons why Villa over the last few years have continued to kind of rise up. And he's come from the lower leagues as well. And he's worked really hard to get to where he is today. being captain and being obviously a full international as well. I just wanted to give John McGinn his props. I think my first choice was actually Douglas Luiz. However, this season, I think he has kind of crossed the barrier where people are like, okay, I kind of rate him now. Like he's a baller. Whereas John McGinn, I still think slips under that radar. And I wanted to give him his props because I think he's the engine of that midfield alongside Tielemans. And I think Emery's just done a great job to kind of, bring his level up a notch since he's come in as well. So I wanted to give him my props. So John McGinn, guys, baller. And that's my midfield.
I feel like that's like the same vibe with me and Harry Winks. Nobody else felt it. Nobody else knew it. But no, they're both really interesting teams. And again, I'm going to bring mine up because there is some similarities. Obviously, again, I put I've listened to you guys pronounce his name. I'm still going to butcher it. But Gross. There we go. In the middle, because kind of echoing what you guys have said. He just is great for Brighton in the middle. I went for Sarr because, again, like I've all said, he's under the radar. In a sense, I'm quite pleased with that because I don't want anybody to take him. And the fact that he is just a pure engine through that midfield. And like you said, Wes, obviously losing Bentancur, we all thought as soon as he was back, Sarr would be out the window, but he's not because he's holding his place. And then I've gone for a totally random one with Alfie from Luton in the middle because I feel sometimes when you've got a team that's struggling, I know they're just out of the relegation zone, you kind of forget those players that are trying to pull the strings in those lower league teams. So for me, that's why I went for Alfie in the middle. But I've kept that nice, short and sweet because I'm going to lead on to Wes now to do his front three.
Right, here we go. I'm going to go left to right. So my left winger is Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth. A little bit similar to probably Pascal Gross in the sense that I never really saw his ability until sort of this year. I know he came from Bristol City January, I believe, and has gone to Bournemouth. But I think he's really taken to that step up coming into the Premier League. And actually, at times when I've seen Bournemouth, he's arguably been their best player. And I think he's one of those players, and I'm going to reference Jordan Ayew here. So bear with, because Jordan Ayew as a player is bloody annoying. Like he is techie, but he shouldn't be. Jordan Ayew, he is that annoying. Like you look at Jordan Ayew and you go, he should not be that good at football. But he's annoying because he'll pull something out of the bag and you go, how on earth has Jordan Ayew done that? Semenyo is a little bit similar in that respect, where he will do something and you're like, wow, okay, hold on a minute. Internationally, don't think he's there just yet. Still quite young though. I think he'd probably have to switch allegiance if he hasn't already in terms of, an England call up or anything like that. But yeah, for me, Antoine Semenyo is definitely underrated. And I think he's probably one of those modern day forwards where he could operate across the front line. And yeah, I think he's been a really good also sort of supporting cast to Dominic Solanke as well at times for Bournemouth this year. So yeah, I've been really, really impressed with Antoine Semenyo. So yeah, that's that one there. Now, this next player, Mr. Jared Bowen, I need to give him his flowers. I'm sorry. This guy is a baller. He is unbelievably good. And I'm so gutted that he plays for West Ham because I think if Jared Bowen was playing for one of the big six, if you like, we would hear about him every week. He is that good. He is, with his contribution, he has pretty much carried West Ham for a good couple of years now. Turns up in those big games, important moments with a goal or an assist. And I just think he's been absolutely brilliant over the last couple of years. So yeah, I need to give him his flowers for the work that he's done. Obviously had a really good game, I think, as well last night for England. Was unfortunate not to score as well. And I definitely think he should be in Southgate squad for the Euros. I rate him that highly. And then lastly is a player that we probably all forgotten about, but we remember him from the last Euros because this is a player that made a real impact when Denmark played England. And that's Mikkel Damsgaard. Again, really, really impressed with him. He's been a bit frustrated, I'd say, with his opportunities at Brentford since he signed, been really, really limited. but I genuinely think there's a player in there, and if you get that player in there or get that player out of him, he's quality. And I think he's so underrated. And I think what I can't get my head around is that Brentford are struggling and need somebody to kind of create something for them, a little bit of moment of magic. And you've got a player like Mikael Damsgaard who can do that. But they're not sort of utilising him. And I think he's sort of seen as the heir to the throne of Christian Eriksen in terms of that creative player for Danish football. And I think, I'm not saying he needs to move, but I think definitely in the summer, clubs should be looking at sniffing around him, because, like I say, if you get him in those sort of attacking areas, he can cause some real damage. So yeah, that is my front three.
Lovely jubbly, I like it. And moving on to Nelson, what is your front three?
I'm not going to take too long on this because obviously Wes mentioned Semenyo. I think Semenyo, again, that is actually a really good comparison about Jordan Ayew, that type of annoying player. So I just wanted to give Semenyo my flowers, because apart from Solanke, who actually in the last few seasons, Solanke was kind of under the radar. This season, he's actually taken that step up and has bagged a lot of goals for Bournemouth. And I think Semenyo has been probably their second best player this season, or you could obviously pin back to defense as well. And Jose Sarr, but sorry, Jose Sarr, that's wrong. I'm thinking of Neto. But Semenyo, I think, is really good, very tricky winger. I think he's one of those few players that can go left and right. And that's really an important quality to have as a winger, to kind of make you unpredictable. So Semenyo, I put him on the right, whereas Wes put him on the left. Because on the left, I put a guy who I rate so highly and came from obviously one of Ghana's most renowned academies, and then moved to Belgium and then to Brighton. That's Simon Adingra. Adingra is another baller that I think should be put in there. Full international, was very important in Ivory Coast winning the African Cup of Nations. And again, he is one of those players, and I watched him in particular at AFCON, and he destroyed every fullback. Now, you can obviously argue that the quality of fullback at AFCON isn't the standard of the Premier League, but as well, there are certain games this season that De Zerbi's put him in, and he's actually bagged some goals, set up some goals, and can go either way as well. And I prefer him on the left. I know De Zerbi has played him on the right, but I've put him on the left, and I think he's quite explosive, and I think he's still got a lot of time to build, and he's very young. So there's a lot of time for him, especially with the way De Zerbi plays. I think he has plans for him. So I think a lot of people should watch out for Adingra over the years. And then to kind of close off my front three, I remember actually I watched this, and I know Wes's girlfriend can actually attest to this. Matheus Cunha against Man United early on in the season had an absolute blinder of a game. And the only problem was that he didn't score a goal. His performance warranted a goal. And I think I really did not take into account how well he dropped deep in possession to receive the ball, being able to turn out and dribble and be able to attack at United's defenders, and then play even a slide rule pass. But the problem was he wasn't able to finish. But over the weeks, I think Gary O'Neill has given him more confidence and trust. And obviously, as us not liking Chelsea, it was very nice to see him bag a hat-trick against Chelsea. So I want to give him his flowers, because I think he's very underrated as a striker. I think I've seen him in the past play midfield. But I think since he's been up top for Wolves, I think he's really put himself on the line out there and actually plays with his heart on his sleeve. Ain't afraid for a tackle, presses really hard. So that is my front three of Cunha, Adingra on the left, and Semenyo on the right.
I like it, man. These are jazzy teams, and there's me that's gone BTEC and gone back to my roots and Spurs players. Because this is my one. I've gone for Johnson because I think he's underrated in the Spurs community, let alone the Premier League. I know Wes, you're going to disagree, but I think the way he's contributed to the team, the way he's come off the bench and scored goals and assisted, I think that's warranted to go slightly underrated. And he is getting used to obviously playing in the Tottenham team, so are all the other players, I guess. But I've also gone for Bowen, like you guys have already alluded to. He is kind of carrying West Ham when he's got those shots and those goals. And then I went for Mitoma, because I really like Mitoma for Brighton. And I think that he does do the business out on that wing. Again, I think I've slightly tipped into maybe the rated section with that front three, but I tried my hardest.
It's a good one, Mitoma. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's why, because obviously, as for me, there's only a few players I know that aren't wearing a Spurs shirt. So for me, when I recognised him and how good he was, especially against us, even this season and even last season, I thought he warranted a spot in my underrated/rated team. But it's been really nice to dissect, obviously, something different for once. I mean, maybe not so different for me because I picked a lot of Spurs players. But before we go, if we're all good to just stay on for a little bit longer, I want to dissect the Luton game that is obviously coming up for Spurs at the weekend. So, Wes, I'm going to allow you to obviously bring up the pretty board that we all like to see. And if we quickly run through how you think Luton's going to set up and how we attack this game.
Yeah, so it's going to be really, really interesting, I think. Luton tend to set up 3-5-2. Although the thing with Luton is at the moment, it's really difficult to kind of know or understand what we're going to expect. They've got a hell of a lot of injuries to some real key players. Obviously, we all know what Tom Lockyer is going through and, speedy recovery to him. But I think they're probably going to have Osho, Mengi, the left-sided centre-back. It was Amari Bell, but I think he's injured. So I'm not 100% sure who's going to fill that void in there. They're missing Marvelous Nakamba, who has been a real linchpin in the midfield. I don't know if Lokonga's back either, but I think if he is, I anticipate that he'll start. I know Jordan Clark has come in as well recently, alongside Ross Barkley, who I think was quite unfortunate actually for me to not get in my underrated team because he's been absolutely brilliant for Luton this year. So yeah, and then obviously you got the wing backs. I know Chidozie Ogbene went off injured against for Republic of Ireland. Alfie Doughty tends to play left wing back. We might see Andros Townsend coming in, and hopefully he gets a good reception from the Spurs crowd. I'm sure he will. Up top, again, really interesting. Looking at Carlton Morris, he's probably likely to start. Whether he starts as a lone striker and has two sort of wider players next to him, which is another sort of formation and system Luton have tried out. The key one for me is Elijah Adebayo. I think if he starts, we could be in for a difficult afternoon. Not in the sense that Adebayo is a world-class centre forward. He's an awkward centre forward to play against. Very gangly, very arms and legs. So, if he's up against Romero's going to be in for a real difficult afternoon. And, I look at Luton and the way that they're going to play. They've changed their style a little bit. So, early part of the season, they were very much playing out from the back, through the pitch, through the thirds, but getting undone because obviously they don't have the quality of the other teams necessarily in the league. They've then reverted to playing a little bit more direct. So it's ball out to the wide centre backs, and then it's these longer passes into the centre forwards. And do you know what? It's worked for them. And it was something that I noticed really early on in the season. I think they played West Ham. And I said to somebody, like, if they play direct, they're going to cause teams a lot of problems. But if they try and play through, they're going to come unstuck. So I am glad that Rob Edwards has changed the way that they play. It's very much get the ball forward and we'll try and play in the opposition half. So yeah, obviously from a Spurs point of view, we're hoping Van der Ven is back. I know Ange did say that he should be back. We'll probably find out, either tomorrow or Friday whether Van der Ven is back. Dragoshin could be in for an interesting afternoon. I don't actually think he was that bad against Fulham either. Midfield three, I would imagine Basuma, Sarr, Maddison, although to be fair, I'd quite like to see Lo Celso in this game. I think he could probably offer something a little bit different. The front three, Kulusevski, Sonny, and then maybe Brennan Johnson, because I think Brennan Johnson's form leading up to this international break was good. And he had he was making a little bit of an impact, probably barring the Fulham game, but I think that was just a bad day at the office for everyone, that one.
That's the thing. Obviously, Luton, like Darren said, they're going to be up for it because obviously they want to stay out of that relegation zone. We need a point to prove because we need to bounce back for this massive run-in of games. But Nelson, how do you kind of see this one going down? Obviously, not from an outsider's point of view, but you know what I mean, from a fan that's not a Spurs fan.
I think seeing how you guys perform, seeing how obviously the Spurs performed against Fulham, I think they'll be looking for a bounce back performance. I think the break obviously as fans, the break doesn't come at a good time. And I think the players after that Fulham performance probably would have wanted another game the week after to just kind of get things going back on track. So that kind of long break in between has probably got them thinking about obviously this game against Luton and how they can bounce back and obviously respond to the fans and show them that everything's kind of back on track to kind of catch Villa. So I think looking forward for this match, I believe that there'll be a win. I think Spurs will get the job done. I think Angie will actually speak to the players, get the message across, and let them know that obviously between now and the end of the season, they really can't afford any slip-ups. And I think Son as well, who I actually really respected his post-match interview, obviously after that Fulham game. And I think as captain, I think he will step up and lead Spurs to a win. So I think midfield will be key as well. So we know, Wes said, Barkley's been really, really important. So as long as Spurs can stop his influence in that game, because I think everything kind of ticks through him, in my opinion. So after seeing Luton this season, but I think looking forward to this game, I think Andrew will have the message across. I think Son will step up as captain, and I think Spurs will win on the weekend.
I bloody hope so, because it'd be nice to talk about a win on Hollie's Hotspur. Because obviously I was unfortunately ill on the Fulham game, which I actually was, but it kind of worked out quite well, so I didn't have to talk about it. But anyway, it's been an amazing show tonight to do something slightly different and to discuss our obviously underrated XI. We'll go around the table and say our goodbyes. So Wes, thanks again for joining us. I'm letting you go first this time. So where can everybody find you?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it a bit shorter this week. Twitter's at Wezo10, unofficial Moose Dembele fan account, as everybody knows by now. Starting to potentially get involved a bit more on Twitter. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I do not know. Instagram's at Wezo32, usually at a Spurs game. I will be at the Luton game as well, so looking forward to that one. Got Kickoff Football Academy, Co4MK for all the coaching stuff. And then because you bullied me into doing some football content, it's WM32 Football on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter as well. And I will get back on to doing some videos because it's been a little while since I did one. So I need to get back on that track. Hollie, I think that's it.
Lovely, jubbly. Thank you, Wes. And Nelson, again, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you too?
You can find me on Instagram. My tag is at @Natumba. That's NTUMBA. Natumba25 on Instagram.
Lovely, jubbly. But no, it's been an excellent show tonight. Like we say, Hollie Hotspurs Live is back next Monday, hopefully discussing a win. Like we say, this show is sponsored by Kofa, so make sure you go check them out as well. And until next time, come on, Spurs.